The night came early in the mountains of Montana, pulling a cold blue shadow over the pine forest. Snow lay thick on the ground, muting every sound except the wind and the distant howl of wolves. A lone motorcycle lay on its side near a narrow trail, its engine long dead. A few yards away, a biker struggled to stay conscious, blood soaking into the snow beneath him. His leg was badly injured from the crash, and every breath burned his chest. He knew he couldn't move far. Out here, alone, the wilderness showed no mercy. Not far away, Clara Whitmore adjusted her heavy coat and carried a lantern as she made her evening rounds. She lived alone in a small cabin deep in the woods, a life she had chosen after years of city noise. The forest was her home, and she respected its dangers. That night, something felt wrong. The animals were restless. The wind carried a sharp scent, blood. Then she heard it. A low, chilling howl, followed by another. Clara changed direction, moving carefully toward the sound. Soon, the lantern light revealed a man lying in the snow. He was big, dressed in black leather, his jacket torn, his face pale from pain and cold. His eyes opened slightly when he heard her footsteps. "Please," he whispered, his voice barely there. Before Clara could respond, shadows moved between the trees. Yellow eyes reflected the firelight of her lantern. Wolves, 3 of them, watched silently, hungry and patient. Clara's heart pounded, but she didn't run. Running would only make things worse. Thinking fast, she dragged the biker closer to a fallen log and helped prop him up. He groaned but stayed conscious. Clara struck flint against steel, her hands steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. Sparks caught, and soon a small fire crackled to life. She fed it branches, then lifted a burning stick and waved it wide, shouting into the darkness. "Get back," she yelled, her voice strong, echoing through the trees. The wolves circled, wary of the flames. They growled softly but kept their distance. Clara stood between them and the wounded biker, her boots planted firmly in the snow. She could have fled and saved herself, but something inside her refused to leave him. Out here, survival depended on standing your ground. Hours passed slowly. The cold bit deep, but the fire held. Clara kept the flames alive, never turning her back on the wolves. The biker drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring thanks, gripping the snow with shaking hands. She tore strips from her scarf and tied them tightly around his leg to slow the bleeding. Finally, as the sky began to lighten, the wolves faded back into the forest, defeated by fire and human will. Dawn crept over the mountains, painting the snow pink and gold. Clara exhaled a breath she felt she'd been holding all night. The biker opened his eyes again, clearer this time. He looked at her with disbelief and respect. "You saved my life," he said quietly. Clara simply nodded. "In the wild, you did what needed to be done," and that night, she had chosen courage. Morning light spread gently across the Montana mountains, turning the frozen forest into a quiet world of silver and gold. Clara helped the biker sit up as the last smoke from the fire drifted into the air. His face looked stronger now, though pain still lined his features. She offered him water from her canteen and a piece of dried bread. He ate slowly, like someone who knew how close he had come to death. "My name's Jack," he said after a long pause. "I was riding with my brothers. Took a bad turn, hit black ice. Next thing I knew, I was alone." Clara nodded, focusing on checking his leg. The bleeding had slowed, but he couldn't ride, not yet. With effort, she helped him onto a small sled she used for hauling supplies. Step by step, they made their way through the trees toward the nearest ranger station, miles away but reachable before nightfall. Along the trail, Jack finally spoke the truth he had been holding back. He pointed to the worn patch on his jacket. "I'm with the Hells Angels," he said carefully, watching her reaction. Clara didn't stop walking. "Out here," she replied calmly, "labels don't matter. You're just a man who needed help." By afternoon, they reached the ranger station. Help arrived quickly. Medical care, warmth, and a working radio. Before being taken away, Jack caught Clara's hand. "I won't forget this," he said. "None of us will." Clara simply smiled and returned to her cabin, expecting the forest to swallow the memory like it always did. 2 days later, the stillness of the valley shattered. A deep rumble rolled through the trees, growing louder by the second. Clara stepped outside her cabin, heart racing. From the winding mountain road came a sight few would ever witness, motorcycles, dozens of them, then more. Chrome flashed in the sunlight. Leather jackets filled the road. One by one, they stopped near her cabin until the clearing was packed with riders. 100 Hell's Angels had arrived. The engines fell silent. The leader stepped forward, helmet under his arm. His eyes were serious, respectful. "You're Clara," he said. "We're here because of you." Jack emerged from the group, now on crutches but standing tall. The bikers formed a line behind him, a wall of loyalty and brotherhood. Jack spoke clearly. "She stood between me and wolves. All night. She could have walked away, but she didn't." One by one, the bikers nodded, some placing hands over their hearts. No threats, no noise, just respect. They presented Clara with supplies, firewood, and a promise. If she ever needed help, she would never stand alone. As they rode away, the forest returned to silence. Clara watched the dust settle, knowing one truth deep in her heart. Kindness, even in the wildest places, always finds its way back. After the roar of engines faded and the forest settled back into its familiar silence, Clara stood alone outside her cabin, the cold air filling her lungs. The clearing looked the same as it always had. Snow-dusted ground, tall pines, a thin trail leading into the mountains, yet something had changed. For the first time in years, Clara felt connected to a world beyond the trees. The visit from the bikers wasn't just a thank you, it was a reminder that courage echoes far beyond the moment it's shown. Days passed quietly. Clara returned to her routines, chopping wood, checking supplies, repairing the fence around her cabin. Still, she noticed small differences. Fresh tire tracks appeared occasionally near the main road. A delivery truck arrived with medical supplies she hadn't ordered. Once, she found a neatly stacked pile of firewood outside her door after a heavy snowstorm. No notes, no signatures. She knew exactly who it was. Meanwhile, Jack's recovery was slow but steady. News of Clara's bravery spread through the Hells Angels chapters across the region, told and retold like a modern legend. To them, loyalty was sacred, and so was debt. Jack often spoke of that night. The firelight, the wolves' eyes, the woman who refused to step aside. It changed him. He rode differently now, more cautiously, more aware of how thin the line was between strength and survival. Weeks later, a powerful winter storm swept across Montana, fiercer than any Clara had seen in years. Snow buried roads, trees fell, power lines snapped, Clara's radio went silent, and for the first time since the bikers left, fear crept back in. The storm trapped her inside the cabin, supplies dwindling faster than expected. On the third night, just as the wind screamed loudest, Clara heard it, engines. At first, she thought it was her imagination. Then the sound grew clearer, cutting through the storm like thunder. Headlights appeared through the snowfall. Against all odds, a small group of bikers pushed their way up the mountain road, chains on their tires, faces hard with determination. Jack was among them. "We heard the storm was bad," he shouted over the wind. "Figured you shouldn't face it alone." They cleared fallen trees, fixed the generator, and brought food and fuel. No speeches this time, no ceremony, just action. By morning, the storm eased, and the danger passed. As they prepared to leave, Jack paused at the door. "You saved my life once," he said. "Now we're even." Clara shook her head gently. "No," she replied, "we're just human." The bikers rode off, disappearing into the white landscape. Clara watched until the last sound faded. She returned inside, warmed by the fire and a quiet certainty. In a world ruled by wilderness and chance, true strength wasn't found in numbers or noise, but in standing up when it mattered most. Life slowly returned to its natural rhythm after the winter storm, but Clara felt a deeper awareness in everything she did. The forest no longer seemed like something she merely survived in, it felt like a place that watched her back, just as she watched over it. She repaired trails, helped rangers track wildlife, and even guided a few lost hikers back to safety. Each act felt connected to that one night when she chose to stand instead of run. Late one afternoon, Clara received an unexpected radio message. The signal crackled, weak but clear enough. "Clara Whitmore, this is Jack." She froze, hand gripping the radio. Jack's voice sounded steady, but serious. "There's trouble near the Eastern Pass. Not bikers, wolves. A den's been disturbed by illegal hunters. The pack's aggressive, and someone's going to get hurt if things don't change." Clara understood immediately. Fear made any creature dangerous. She agreed to help, knowing the land better than anyone. By dawn, she met Jack and a small group of bikers at the edge of the forest. They left their motorcycles behind, moving on foot, quietly and respectfully. Together with the rangers, they tracked the disturbed den. Clara read the signs: broken branches, panicked tracks, blood in the snow. When they reached the area, they found traps set illegally and the remains of a damaged den. The wolves watched from a distance, tense but holding back. Clara stepped forward first. "No sudden moves," she said calmly. "They're defending, not hunting." Under her guidance, the group dismantled the traps and cleared the area. Rangers set markers and prepared to relocate the wolves to safer ground. Slowly, the tension eased. The pack retreated, disappearing into the trees without violence. That night, as they sat around a controlled campfire, Jack looked at Clara with a new kind of respect. "You don't just survive the wild," he said. "You understand it." Clara shook her head gently. "Understanding comes from listening." The operation made quiet news. No headlines, no fame, but it changed something important. The bikers saw that strength didn't always mean confrontation. The rangers saw that community could form in unexpected ways. And Clara saw that her role in the mountains had grown beyond solitude. As the group parted ways the next morning, Jack spoke one last time. "You stood between a man and wolves," he said. "Now you stood between wolves and harm." Clara watched them leave, the forest calm once again. She felt no pride, only peace. The balance had been restored, not through force, but through respect. And in that balance, Clara knew she had found her true place. Spring arrived slowly in the Montana mountains, melting snow into clear streams and breathing new life into the forest. Wildflowers pushed through the thawing ground, and the wolves' howls grew distant once more. Clara stood outside her cabin one morning, feeling the sun on her face, thinking about how much had changed since that frozen night. The forest was still wild, still dangerous, but it no longer felt lonely. Word of Clara's courage had traveled far beyond the valley. Hikers stopped by to thank her. Rangers checked in more often. Even the small nearby town spoke her name with respect. Yet Clara remained the same, quiet, steady, grounded. She never told the story unless asked, and even then, she spoke of it simply, as if it were just another night in the woods. One afternoon, a familiar rumble echoed through the mountains again, but this time it was gentle, controlled. A smaller group of riders approached the cabin, not 100, but enough to be noticed. They parked neatly along the road and removed their helmets. Jack stepped forward, walking without crutches now, his strength fully returned. "We didn't come to make noise," he said. "We came to close a circle." From the saddlebags, the bikers unloaded lumber, tools, and supplies. Over the next 2 days, they worked together, repairing Clara's cabin roof, reinforcing the walls, building a stronger fire pit, and setting up a reliable radio tower. The forest echoed not with engines, but with laughter, hammers, and shared meals by the fire. On the final evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Jack handed Clara a small wooden box. Inside was a simple silver pendant shaped like a wolf's paw. "It's not about fear," he said quietly. "It's about respect." Clara accepted it, understanding more than words could say. Before leaving, Jack turned serious. "People think strength looks loud," he said. "But we know better now." As the bikers rode away for the last time, Clara watched without sadness. She knew this wasn't goodbye, it was balance. What she gave to the world had returned, not as debt, but as connection. That night, Clara sat by her fire, the forest alive with soft sounds. Somewhere far away, wolves moved through the trees, not as enemies, but as part of the same land she loved. She touched the pendant and smiled. The story would live on, told in biker circles, ranger stations, and quiet cabins. A story not about gangs or danger, but about a woman who stood her ground, chose courage, and proved that even in the wildest places, humanity still rides strongest.